Religion is a fascinating topic to explore. In some real regard, we need it, we crave it, we adhere to it, even if we don't profess to believe in a transcendent godlike force. Religion is the perfect example of the idea that Jordan Peterson talks about, where people don't have ideas, ideas have people. Being gripped by religion can cause people to do all sorts of wonderful and terrible things. It could cause a person to get on a boat and travel thousands of miles over desolate ocean to tell people about their religious views and to even be willing to accept death. I have always thought that religion is good, but to take it with a grain of salt. If a woman is with her partner before their wedding day, we ought not to go drag them out to the street and throw rocks at them. I was a religious missionary for 2 years, and I saw this phenomenon, which I later gave the name religious rot. It's this idea that people come to certain conclusions based off of their religious understandings of the world that aren't really grounded in reality that well. An example of this was somebody I knew in missions, where it was her firm belief that God was telling her that she needed to overcome her fears and to put herself in God's arm and to trust him. And the way that this was going to be played out was that she was going to jump off of a bridge. Yeah. And so all the experienced cliff jumpers there in that group were all telling her not to do this, that they hadn't checked out the water first and they didn't know what was below it and it could be too shallow. But no. God was telling her to jump off of this bridge and to overcome this fear. Well, she jumped off of the bridge, good for her. She faced her fears, but she landed on a rock and broke her tailbone. Yeah. And this was all based off of a religious concept that she had learned at the school that we were attending about faith. That somehow having faith in Jesus gave you license to do whatever you wanted, as so long it was in the name of that religious idea. And of course, this religious concept caused her to break her tailbone unnecessarily. So religion rot is this idea that is a statement that is made within a religious text, as on earth as it is in heaven, and then is taken out of its original context and then applied erroneously to everyday living, ultimately denying very true and unmutable facts about the nature of reality. For instance, rocks that might be hiding in, not so clear water. This ultimately leads people to having an unhealthy relationship with the natural world. Now, I believe that the perfect representation of this, as somebody I had met while sailing in the Bahamas, apart from being, generally abrasive and ignorant, it was his belief that he was going to live to be 400 years old based off of a religious text that he had read, as on earth, so as in heaven, as so on earth as it is in heaven. That's because people in heaven, to his understanding, do not die, and therefore, as in heaven, so it will be on earth, that he should also live. And if not forever, at least till 400 years old. And he was very adamant about that. Another great example of this, and this is a concept that we are going to talk much more in depth in a later video, is this idea that God is going to send you your future spouse, that he has someone planned out for you in which he wants you to be with. This idea was made popular by the author Joshua Harris, who wrote the book I Kiss Dating Goodbye, where he made many beautiful yet incorrect statements about the nature of relationships and sexual attraction. His views, such as God's gonna send you the one, has it's kind of become stock amongst the Christian church. And it comes from this idea of God being a deeply personal being who wants the absolute best for you. Yet, in my experience in the mission field, I have seen this view hurt and confuse young Christians because it fundamentally goes against certain biological principles in related to dating and mating. One of the ways that it does this is that, and I would say that I've seen it hurt women more than I've seen it hurt anybody else. Women tend to be more picky when it comes to dating and relationships for obvious reasons. And with this idea that God is a deeply personal being who wants the best for you, it has caused women's standards to shoot up through the roof. Now, by no stretch am I saying that women having standards is a bad thing. No, no, no. We should have standards. They're necessary. They keep us safe. However, taken to an extreme, it can do more harm than good. And I remember talking to one of my colleagues in missions, and she was telling me about how there was a guy who was interested in her, who was quite accomplished and had just about everything that she was looking for, but there was one thing that made him not the one God had for her, and that was he was too short. Now, I'm not gonna say women change your standards for men. I'm simply pointing out a pattern here. Now, it's totally fine. If you don't want to date somebody because they're too short for you, that's a preference, good for you. You know, we want what we want. However, I saw this occurrence happening over and over of the high standards raised where women were literally going infertile in missions because they firmly believed in this text that was taken out of context by an author who, listening to his own rules, not only divorced his wife, but left the church and religion entirely. Sadly, this woman ran out of time. She was not able to bear children, and she could not find a mate in life. And it was because of this idea that God had the right person for them. It really does. It breaks my heart because she really wanted kids. Whenever we were out on mission fields, she was always finding an excuse to hold a baby, to cradle a baby, to rock a baby. She wanted them quite badly, but due to her religion rot, if you will, no one was perfect enough for her. And she had to face the consequences of that. Now, I've thought long and hard about this idea, and there's a lot more I could say. I'm not sure how much I should say in just one video, but that said, how should we combat religion rot? Well, the first thing I would say that we need to do is we need to look at the outcome of these ideas. Marxism was held as a beautiful philosophical and economical idea that ultimately led to the deaths of millions of people throughout the 20th century. That even though that an idea might be beautiful and wonderful, it doesn't make it good. If you truly believe that God is going to send you the right one, and that view has kept you single for 6 years, well, maybe it's time to change up the strategy a little bit. I like to use martial arts as a good example of this. There's a reason why MMA is more effective than traditional karate. That's because MMA takes the best of all possible ideas and puts them together, continually evolving and trying to get better through environmental pressures. Where traditional karate is just that, it's karate. It doesn't move from karate, it doesn't explore from karate. If an idea is bad, it's going to stay because it's tradition. That said, we should not abandon religion. We should not throw it all into the fire. Religion is great, but if a system of ideas causes you to jump off of a bridge and break your tailbone, it might be time to start rethinking things. Not to abandon, but to rethink. Thank you all so much for watching. This is my first official video on this channel. I hope to make many more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.